Hey everybody, back again I see. Fair enough. So yeah, we've got some rollers to rip off of track frames. Let's get to it. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. So look over here on the bench, you can see we are 2 starting engine blocks lighter over here than we were last episode. We just have the one that's left for now. All I'll say is we're in round 2 is seeing about getting those things bored and sleeved. I think this one's going to pan out this time. Wish me luck. And the other bit of housekeeping is also under the last episode, one of the commenters mentioned it seemed like I was in a little bit of a rush that time using an impact and trying to get things torn apart and items ticked off the list as fast as I could. Well, that's because work has begun on the field. Raining right now, lightening up off to the west, so that means it's probably just about done. But it's too wet out here to do anything else tonight. Otherwise, I'd be out here right now. But yeah, we've been ripping topsoil. Yeah, we've been taking high spots down, and yeah, we've been building up for roadbed, prepping that surface. So yeah, from here on out, weather permitting, if I have the weather, I'm not going to be in the shop. So if I'm in the shop, things have to be rather rushed. So it's still raining enough out here that I think, yeah, we're going to go back to that nice warm shop. That's what we're going to do now. So even though we're still burning daylight, we're going to trade a greasy and muddy mess out on the field for a greasy and dirty mess in here. I know, right? So the remaining teardown is pretty straightforward. Each roller has 4 bolts holding it on, and I'm hoping some of this excess grease may have even wicked a little bit of petroleum compound into those caps, down the shanks of those bolts, and possibly even into the threads. I don't know. Usually if you break any bolts, it's these, because they go right into the track frame. There's a little bit of it's English, man, an exposed end up in here that can get rusty, can build rust, you know, on the like half a thread that's sticking out. And if they break in the frames, it's just a complete pain to try and get all that stuff drilled out and salvage the hole. And yeah, so if you run into trouble, it's usually on these here. Let's just see how many we can break. Okay, you know how I'm kind of a pain in the butt, right? I was all ready to go ripping on those roller bolts, and then I saw something rather curious with the wear that's happening here that honestly I think it's worth getting into. I even drew a picture. See? So I'll show you what caught my eye. I just happened to glance down and think, wow, that is a really thin flange compared to that one. And then look at, that's a really thin one too compared to that one. All 4 of those should be that thick. And then I found this roller kind of follows suit, not to the same extent, but it's still there. And then I got to looking at the back roller, and I'll just throw the gauge up on here to help you guys see what I'm seeing. If we can get it to perch in position, there we are. Now, keep in mind, this is the right side track frame. Even though it's on the left right here, both of these are upside down. So pretend like they were placed in position and we just flopped them over, plop, right upside down. So we have right side frame assembly. Here's the outside of it. Left side frame, that's the inside. All right, so now we're all on the same page. Pay special attention to this flange and how it follows the contour of the gauge perfectly right, even down to that corner. And we have basically 0% wear on that kind of elevated ridge right around the base of it. English, tripping over the tongue. But now look at how the wear starts here, and you have that profound gap, and the wear all biases to the outside because we're referencing on both of these shell faces, referencing everything to the outside. So we have heavy outside wear right here. We go to the other one. Now look, the inside of the shell is still 100%, and then we have even more wear, heavily biased again to the outside. Also this roller, heavily biased to the outside. Look at the wear on those flanges, heavily biased to the outside. We even have it going on this front one up here. You can see we have excellent contour on that flange, 0% wear right around there, and then heavily biased to the outside. We're good on the inside here, we're high, and then heavily biased again to the outside. Contrast that with the left side frame, similar wear pattern, but inverse of what we're seeing on the right. We're heavily biased on the wear to the inside on this one, and I think I know why. So this is one of those times where it pays to scrutinize these things, it pays to analyze them a little bit, because I think it's going to tell a story. Some people may be bored by this. These are the kind of things that I really like. So we know 1113 had a lot of driveline wear from, the gear wear in the transmission and on the drive faces of the teeth on the final drives, and it's kind of all starting to add up to me. But to get that biased wear going on, the first thing I thought of was perhaps the track frames were not shimmed in line with the center line of the drive sprockets. So I quickly discounted that theory, because when your frames are running out of alignment, it usually causes the track chains to wear heavily on one side or the other of the sprocket, and I'm not seeing that on this side or over on the left. If you had the roller frame shimmed out too far or shimmed in too far, as the track chain comes and the sprocket picks it up, it's going to be gouging heavy along the side of the chain on one side or the other. We just don't see that happening here. So I think we can discount that theory. The next thing that could cause heavy bias toward, all one direction like we have here, is consistent side slope operation. And I know 1113 came from South Dakota. I don't know that they were ever farming hillsides with it. But you would think farming a hillside, you're not always traveling one direction. You would be turning around and traveling back at some point in time. That should even that bias out side to side. So my theory as to the most plausible cause of the wear we're seeing on these rollers probably came from a lot of hours of pulling a plow and running one track down in the dead furrow. 1113 had those standard 12-inch wide track pads on it, which would have fit perfectly right down a dead furrow when you're pulling a plow. This is where my little sketch comes into play. So pardon the mini eraser marks. I've been a dirt man today, digging rocks and playing in sand, so we're kind of drawing like a second grader. But so we have a cross section of a field, and we're standing behind the tractor looking at it from the rear, left side, right side, and we have, this is the on land, so the unbroken part of the field right here. Here's the dead furrow. That's where you get that 90-degree drop-down wall where you made your last pass, and then there are the two furrows that you turned, or however many you turned on the last pass. So if you're running a crawler tractor with one track in the dead furrow, take into account the track chains have the track pads on them that are a lot wider. Because they're a lot wider, it's going to make that whole track, that whole chain and everything, want to sit flat down in the bottom of the dead furrow. Same for up on land. It's going to want to flatten right out. But because you're running one track down lower than the other, your tractor axis is on a tilt down to the right. And typically you always, with a conventional plow anyway, always roll the furrows off to the right. That means the right track is always going to be down lower than the left. And you can see that's going to cause heavy outside wear and outside bias on the right side, because most of your tractor weight is on that outer shell right there. That inner one can even lift up off of the track chain. And now for the left side, you can see heavy contact, heavy weight on that inside flange, and then outside is pretty much lift off. You can lift it off. You can see the angle of differential right there. So that would give you heavy bias wear on the outside to the right, heavy bias wear on the inside to the left. To me, that makes a whole lot of sense. Now, I've talked before about when you're going to set up and plow with a crawler, you want to do your hitch geometry, English, tripping over the tongue, so that your offset is such that you can have both track chains up on the unbroken land. And, that keeps all your roller flanges in contact with both rails. We don't have suspension here. These rollers are fixed to the track frames, which are fixed to the pivot shaft, which is fixed to the chassis. And when you're actually running a flat track within, a tilted axis chassis, you're also wearing the rails because you're putting more pressure on one side than the other, and you're also putting like a twist on those pins and bushings. You're under power, under load, but they're wanting to twist down, but then the sprocket wants to twist it back up. So to me, that makes the most sense to see the inner and outer bias that we're having on these rollers down here. I can't think of any side slope operation that would have caused that kind of wear in the manner that we're seeing. Now, say you want to go plow with your hobby machine and you're just going to do a few acres. You're out for a day. You're not going to really wear anything by running a track down dead furrow. But if you're going to go spend 1,000 hours doing that, pulling plow day after day, season after season, yeah, you're going to start seeing the kind of wear that we have here. So, you know, it's not the end of the world if you go do that. It's just best to keep them up on land, keep everything level. Everything lives a longer life. Everything's a lot happier. So, yeah, why do we spend 10 minutes talking about this again? I don't know. It's just some of those things where you can kind of piece together the history of the machine, you know, by looking at the scars of the past, and it's just all part of the story. Anyway, I'm sure I've lost like half you guys by now. I get way too talky in these things. Let's actually take something apart. Grease is so thick it's hard to get the socket on it. They are a tad oily though. It's good. Last one, are we gonna do it? Perfect run. No broken bolts. Oh man. Look how thick that old grease is built up on there. Okay. Bushing looks pretty good. It's the old leather-lipped seal. Yeah. Take a look at the other side. There we go. Huh. Suction seal. Thrust washer in there, a little bit of a shim. Okay. Yeah, just chunks of old grease in here. Crazy, but good, right? Oh man, wait till you see what's in there. Look at that. You can actually see the shape of the roller flange in there. Just built up solid of that stuff. How much grease did they put in this thing? Oh, it's crazy. It's even filling the frame channels. Same on this side, caked in full grease. First time I've had more grease than rust holding these things in. A little bit of play on that bearing maybe. Feels like it's, yeah, suctioned in again. Yeah, that's not good. Thrust washer's been spinning in there. Kind of wore the cap too. Oh well. Okay, after action report time. We'll start with the track frames. So I scraped the majority of the grease out of these. Let me tell you, there was a lot. Big chunk. Never before have I seen these frame channels full. Oh, loose. There we go. Dang, man. You see here, I've got, I'd say, close to 4 gallons of a 5-gallon bucket full. Gotta love it when you can see the roller flange profile in the chunk of grease. I should cut that open and count the rings, right? So lots of stuff came out of these. I was able to give each one a good look, assess them. Really didn't see anything to worry about. No cracks, breaks, welds. Left side frame though, again, heavy inside wear right there and right there. It looks like either a bearing or a thrust washer or a cap failed and the roller flange started drifting over and wearing on the edge of that channel just a bit. That's nothing to worry about right there. We'll probably take those high spots off. They're well out of the footprint of the cap anyway, but we'll just clean it up. But the good news is no flanges gouging into any of the cross members. No roller shafts machining their way clear through the track frame. So liking what I'm seeing right there. Track rollers. So I pulled the caps off of each one, and I'll tell you what, for the most part, everything's pretty good. Really good bearings in all of these. We're going to get disgusting here, but actually those are the old leather lip seals. It's kind of a dual lipped setup, and they don't look bad. The bearings are excellent in these. The shafts are excellent on these. And for the most part, you can see the thrust washer perched in there. For the most part, those are all very, very good. I laid the left side out over here same way, and I only found one thrust washer that was starting to wear on the tabs. You can see that one there. It's got some wear. The other one, it was just starting to spin inside that cap, and somebody had been in there putting the proper shims in to control in play. So okay, we'll leave it there. We're just, I'm thinking that these had like a rebearing, reseal, and a light rebuild done to them at one time. Not a lot of hours put on them since then, but you look at the wear that's on these shells. We'll take a look at the right side. We have it laid out properly here. See, we have wear there, but it's flat, and this one's angled. Flat wear, angled, flat, angled, flat, angled. I'm starting to think 1113 spent its life in a dead furrow. That's really about the only thing I can think of, again, that would cause wear like that. So even though that is still a usable set of rollers, we've got these right here. This is, well, okay, bear with me. These are as close to new as you get. Right there, look at that. They just fit that gauge perfectly. All of them are like that. These are J-Series rollers, got them from California. Thanks, Josh, if you're watching. Once again, bearings are excellent. I've kind of assessed them already. I think all they're really going to need is a reseal, make sure the thrust washers are good, set up that in play. And I'll tell you what, we have 6 doubles and just 2 singles. Standard configuration on a D2 is 2 and 2, single to double. Well, I like 3 and 1. You have to put the singles in front of the sprocket because the teeth would hit the inner flanges if you didn't. But running those redonkulously wide 20-inch Super Swamper pads on this thing, I kind of feel a little bit better having doubles everywhere I can fit them anyway. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to start looking at that other set pretty hard. We might just keep 1113's originals on hand. You know, if the seals are in them, they're probably good to just scrape off and put together and run as is if you had to. So we're going to cut it right here. We're out of time in the shop once again. I'm gonna go start throwing this video together. Thanks everybody for the views, for the watch minutes, for the likes, for the subs. Thanks everybody for memberships. They're available down below. You guys know the routine on that so far by now. Sorry. I gotta quit talking before I mess it up even worse. Thanks guys.